Hello everyone, welcome to SplitSecond. Before starting, we would like to specially thank Izanagi, Carneiro and Stewart972 for being our patrons for 1 year now. Your support means a lot to us, thank you! This week we have two guests with us, Mons from cEDH TV and PlayM from his own new channel. You can find the links for both channels in the description below. PlayM brought his own Akiri Thrasios list done alongside Anno 2K and Alton 7. David brought Prismatic Godo, Hub 7 and Hokeyrulz list with Esika God of the Tree. Baal brought his latest take on Orvar the Allform. And Mons brought his own Yidris Storm. Let's see those starting hands. PlayM won the die roll but was unfortunate to have to mulligan down to 5. He kept a Volcanic Island, alongside a Mana Crypt and a Talisman of Creativity for ramp. Birgi is a great new card for storming turns. Burning Inquiry can be used as early disruption to everyone else's mulligan plans, while Pyroblast and Mystical Tutor were sent to the bottom. David kept a rather slow but controlling hand, with a Plateau, Windswept Heath and Wooded Foothills for lands. Curse Totem is great at slowing Dorks and Trasios as well. Noxus Revival is versatile interaction, while Pact of Negation and Mana Drain can help him combo or prevent someone else to do it. Baal had to mulligan down to 6 and kept 2 islands and a Grim Monolith for ramp. Baal is a good cost reducer, especially alongside Whim of Volrath and Ghostly Flicker, which can both be used to accrue value or combo. Hydroblast was sent to the bottom. Lastly, Mons kept his first 7 with a Taiga, Scalding Tarn and the City of Brass, alongside a Utopia Sprawl and Birds of Paradise for ramp. Imperial Seal can get him some extra ramp or protection for that peer into the Abyss. Let's see how this one plays out. PlayM starts things up with a Volcanic Island, followed with a Mana Crypt and then casts Birgi, making Baal instantly regret his bottom card. David starts with a Wooded Foothills and passes as well. Baal plays an island and it's Mons' turn. He opens with a Lotus Petal, followed by a Scalding Tarn, which he cracks for a Tropical Island and then finishes with a Birds of Paradise before passing. PlayM takes 3 from the crypt and casts Talisman of Creativity, triggering Birgi for 1 red. He uses that mana to cast Burning Inquiry, triggering Birgi again. Although, noticing this early cast, Baal responds to Birgi's trigger with a miscast, to avoid being caught by an Hullbreacher in response and saving his good combo pieces in hand. PlayM was mainly digging for fuel though, so he passes the turn. On his end step, David cracks his fetch for a Volcanic Island. He then plays a Plateau and casts a Curse Totem, slowing that bird and any Trasios plans. Baal plays an island and casts Grim Monolith, passing the turn. Mons plays a Taiga and casts a Utopia Sprawl on it, naming black for that peer in his hand. He then casts Imperial Seal for a Carpet of Flowers, hoping to be able to cast Peer next turn if Baal plays another island. PlayM's Crypt slaps him again. He draws and plays a Mana Confluence. He casts Akiri, triggering Birgi, and then casts Spellseeker, triggering Birgi again and fetching for a Mystical Tutor. He passes, a bit sad he missequenced his plans. David plays and cracks a Windswept Heath for a Bayou and passes. Baal fails to draw a land to his and Mons' sadness, so he casts Orvar and passes the turn. Mons plays a City of Brass and casts the tutored Carpet of Flowers. He passes, holding some interaction. PlayM's crypt learned to beat, and beating it is. He casts a Mystical Tutor in his upkeep, triggering Birgi and getting a Wheel of Fortune to the top. He then starts things up with a Neoform, sacrificing Akiri, looking to that Hullbreacher. However, David does respond with a Force of Negation, pitching the Mana Drain. PlayM then casts his Wheel of Fortune as his last card in hand. David then responds with an Enlightened Tutor for a Carpet as well. Baal then responds with a Whim of Volrath on the Grim Monolith to avoid giving more Carpet mana to his opponents. He gets a copy token from Orvar's trigger. Lastly, Mons uses his interaction and Into the Royal on Birgi to prevent PlayM from getting any more stormy turns. Everyone draws 7 and PlayM uses Birgi's floating red mana to cast Grim Monolith, followed by a Lotus Petal, and cracks it for a Mystic Remora. Thank Odin that Birgi was gone. David responds with a Vampiric Tutor, this time for a Channel the Suns. Then, Mons responds with a Cyclonic Rift on Orvar to use its last floating mana and prevent a potential storming turn from Baal. David then starts his turn with a Reflecting Pool and then casts Carpet of Flowers, triggering the fish. He goes to his second main phase, adding 2 green with Carpet and casts Channel the Suns, feeding the fish again. This way, he can cast Bifrost, the Prismatic Bridge, triggering the Remora again, but setting up to win next turn. Baal starts his turn with an Omen of the Sea, triggering the fish again, bottoming one and drawing the other. Plays an island, then casts a Mana Vault, triggering Remora again, and then casts Orvar, setting enough to try to go off next turn. He passes. Mons goes to his turn, adding triple black with Carpet, and casts Song of Creation with 6 cards in hand. He hopes to storm off before PlayM untaps with all his cards in hand, or we reach David's deadly turn. Remora triggers and it's not paid for. Now, considering Mons is going to try to win with this regardless of how many cards he feeds the fish, and if he does fizzle, PlayM would be fed enough to win next turn, Baal responds with his Swan Song, triggering the fish again. Mons then plays a Volcanic Island and casts an Arcane Signet, triggering the fish again. He follows it with a Noxious Revival on the Peer into the Abyss, not paying for the Remora. He finishes with a Time Twister, momentarily mistaking it for a Windfall, but actually reducing the odds of PlayM winning with his dozens of cards. This also may hit David's plans, as he could actually draw into Godo or Helm, and this would prevent him to win next turn. PlayM goes to his turn and pays for the fish to stick around, and the crit hits him again. It's doing a better job than any of us. He plays a City of Brass and bluffs not having a way to stop David, so he threatens to go all in and casts Trasios. He then casts Jeska's Will, choosing both modes. David, however, responds with a Silence to protect his plans from any incoming disruption. PlayM draws from the Remora. In this position, with everyone tapped out, Baal has no interaction for Godo, so he can only try to stop the silence so PlayM can find anything, so he casts Force of Negation, pitching a counterspell and triggering Remora again. Jeska's Will resolves, sealing everyone's fates. He casts Fellwar Stone and follows it with a Final Fortune. He then casts Intuition. David does have a Pact of Negation, but no way to pay for it, so Intuition resolves, getting LED, Sevin's Reclamation and Underworld Breach. Baal gives him Sevin's, since he just has 3 cards in his graveyard to make it slightly harder to go off on the first escape spell. PlayM then passes to his final turn. The crit spares him the first time this game, and he lets the fish die as more fodder to escape spells. He plays and cracks Misty Rainforest for a Taiga. He follows it with a Red Elemental Blast on Orvar. He then casts Vin's Reclamation on Underworld Breach. He escapes Intuition for 2 lands and Brain Freeze, and from here he is now able to mill himself entirely. Escapes a Bounce Spell on Curse Totem and then escapes Auriok Salvagers, generates infinite mana with LED, escapes some more creatures and casts a huge Finale of Devastation. GG. With this turn of events, we decided to play another game. PlayM won the die roll again, but went deep into a multi-4 with a single Foothills accompanied with the Birds of Paradise. He then has Noxious Revival, probably to hit that fetch again and refill with a Wheel of Fortune, since he bottomed LED, Arcane Signet and Spellseeker. Let's see if he managed to come back. David kept 3 lands, Bloodstained Mire, Forbidden Orchard and Spire of Industry. LED can turn that Spire online and also combos with Breach inside the deck. Sylvan Library is great card draw potential, while Dispel and Force of Negation are good counterspells as well. Baal kept an explosive hand with 2 islands and Ancient Tomb, a Lotus Petal and Mox Diamond that can output Orvar turn 1. However, he is lacking on payoffs, only with Unsubstantiate and Cyclonic Rift for interaction. Lastly, Mons has an even more explosive hand, despite mulligan down to 5. A single Polluted Delta paired with a Mana Crypt and a Cabal Ritual is almost enough for that turn 2 ad nauseam. Demonic Tutor can help on assuring his second land drop or protection depending on his first draw. He bottomed Noxious Revival and Mox Opal. Let's see how fast can this one be. PlayM starts with his Wooded Foothills, cracking it for a tropical island, casts Birds of Paradise and passes. David starts with Spire of Industry, casts LED and then casts Wild Growth on the Spire before passing. Baal starts his turn with a Mox Diamond, discarding an island, follows it with a Lotus Petal and then plays an Ancient Tomb, assuring turn 1 Orvar. He then passes. Mons did top deck a land, Command Tower. He casts Mana Crypt and then Demonic Tutor. He tutors for a Rhystic Study to have options for turn 2, either Adnaus if everyone's tapped out or Rhystic to grind some value. On his end step, however, PlayM casts Noxious Revival on his Wooded Foothills, not gambling on the top deck and aiming for a new mulligan to 7. He plays and cracks the Foothills for a Volcanic Island and casts his last card, Wheel of Fortune. Not only happy to refill, but also to undo Mons' tutor. David ponders on the Force of Negation, since he had library to recoup and PlayM would be out of the game, but since his hand is not that great either, Mons did tutor for something and Baal also dumped half of his hand, he lets it resolve. In his turn, he plays an exotic orchard followed by a crow mox, imprinting a brainstorm. He then casts Channel the Suns and brings up the rainbow again. Baal complains about always being the one to deal with David, as he casts Mystical Tutor on his upkeep. After pondering on Chain of Vapor, he goes for Hidden Strings. He plays an island and casts it, targeting both his lands and triggering Orvar, creating a copy of an island. He then ciphers the strings onto Orvar. With the mana floating, he casts Sakashima of 1,000 Faces, copying Orvar, and then swings with the Shapeshifter at Mons, triggering Hidden Strings. He targets both his lands, triggering both Orvars and getting 2 islands from them. He then casts a Thought Vessel and then transmutes Muddle the Mixture for a Snap, to have at the ready in case David decides to equip his Godo. He passes to Mons. He takes 3 from the crypt, plays a City of Brass and casts Ponder. Not liking what he sees, he shuffles before drawing. He casts Carpet of Flowers to Baal's disapproval. He goes to his second main phase, adding 4 red, and casts Dockside Extortionist for 6 treasures. He casts Felwar Stone and follows it with Yidris before passing. After this turn 2, PlayM feels a bit intimidated, but he won't stay behind as he plays a Rejuvenating Springs into a Carpet of Flowers as well. Baal's disapproval is growing. He goes to his second main phase and casts Grim Monolith and Talisman of Creativity with the help of Carpet. He then casts Trasios before passing. David asks if anyone wants to do anything on his end step, and no one does, so he goes to his turn, hoping to win. On his upkeep, as the bridge triggers, David taps the Orchard, and Baal asks for it not to be a silence, but a silence it is. Baal can only interact with Snap once the bridge resolves, so he passes priority. Mons casts Brain Freeze to try to mill Godo or Helm, thus preventing David's combo. David mills 6, but neither goes to his graveyard. Then PlayM hardcasts a Force of Will to counter David's silence, opening the path for Baal's Snap. The bridge trigger finally resolves and David gets Godo, Bandit Warlord, which triggers and fetches him Helm of the Host to the battlefield. David draws and plays a Wooded Foothills, cracking it for a volcanic island. Now, since David knows about Baal's Snap, he won't sacrifice the LED to equip Godo, since it would just be bounced to his empty hand. On his end step, Baal casts Snap on Godo, forgetting Yidris was indeed on the field. He untaps 2 lands and casts Hull Breacher, hoping to top deck a Will. He doesn't, so he plays a Mystic Sanctuary, mistakenly putting a Mystical Tutor on top instead of Muddle the Mixture. He then goes to attacks and swings all of his creatures at David, triggering Hidden Strings and targeting Sakashima and Hull Breacher, getting 1 copy of each. He then passes to Mons. He takes 3 from the crypt again and goes directly to attacks, swinging Yidris at David. It connects and triggers, giving all his spells cascade until end of turn. He goes to his second main phase, adding 5 black with Carpet. He casts Grim Monolith, cascading into a Soul Ring. He plays a Volcanic Island and then casts an Utopia Sprawl. Sadly, the only player with a forest is PlayM. It cascades into a Chrome Mox, which he decides not to cast. Utopia Sprawl enchants Tropical Island and Mons chooses black for it. He finishes the turn with his last card in hand, Mox Opal. On his turn, PlayM adds 5 red with Carpet, plays a Misty Rainforest and casts Neoform, sacrificing Trasios. He also cracks the fetch for a Tundra and gets a Spellseeker, which in turn gets him an Ephemerate that he casts targeting Spellseeker, hoping to win with Final Fortune. David then responds with a Chain of Vapor targeting the Spellseeker in order to fizzle the Ephemerate and therefore its rebound. He does recast Spellseeker, getting Enlightened Tutor to his hand, which he also casts, fetching for Underworld Breach. He then casts Final Fortune and passes to himself. On his extra turn, he gets 5 white from Carpet of Flowers and casts Underworld Breach. It resolves, so he escapes Ephemerate, targeting Spellseeker. David still has another piece of interaction. Although not great, he casts Cyclonic Rift on Spellseeker in order to mess up PlayM's mana plans. He does replace Spellseeker, which was what he wanted all along, this time getting a Brain Freeze. He escapes Enlightened Tutor, getting LED to the top. He then casts Brain Freeze with Storm equals 5. Escapes LED 2 times to have mana for his Force of Will in his graveyard, just in case. He then mills himself totally to escape Auriok Salvagers and generate infinite mana alongside LED. Escapes some more creatures and finishes again with a huge finale of devastation. GG. Thank you for joining us for today's match, everyone. Everyone was about to win, but PlayM managed to pull on through twice. We'd like to start the credits by thanking our current patrons, and especially Izanagi, Stefan, TJ Rapp, Mike Purr, Ajimo, Etod Shield, Drunken Housecat, V, RJ, Starfall, and our latest stack breaker, Brandon Glassbrook. If you want to support us, you can do so by liking this video, subscribing, or by becoming a patron yourself. If you want to go through other Commander adventures, click one of the videos on the right. If you want to talk with us about our games or other EDH related matters, join us on Discord. Join us again next week for a new set of Commanders and more decisive plays. See you all then!